However, with the Golden Renaissance emerged the route for the American Revolution. Cardinal Nicholas of Cusa, an intellectual pioneer and reformer of Catholicism, recognized that breakout from empire is only possible by setting up a new stage on a distant continent, peopled with pioneers of the best traditions of European civilization, but without empire. From this Renaissance route emerged the first successful breakout from empire, centuries later, by the Benjamin Franklin-inspired American Declaration of Independence in 1776. And the subsequent founding of the USA, as the world's first nation-state. Nevertheless, the revolution was betrayed again and again, such as in the Civil War, until it was finally lost with the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. More than 1 million people had perished in establishing and defending the American freedom, till it was lost again, that now remains as but a shell. The French Revolution started in the year the U.S. Constitution came into force, in 1789. The French Revolution was not a real revolution in terms of breaking away from the platform of empire. It was betrayed by a little men aiming to compromise before it even got underway, whereby it was quickly stolen by the masters from London, that directed its show into a counter-revolution that destroyed the intellectual elite of France, with the Jacobin terror operations. The counter-revolution expanded further when Napoleon took over and spread war and destruction across all of Europe and into Russia. However, in the shadow of the terror of empire that was wrecking Europe and had reached out to crush America in the Civil War, which almost succeeded, a new attempt was made in America to overturn the core of the terror of empire, the subliminal terror of Rome that even Cusa, the reformer, hasn't been able to break out of. A farmer's daughter from New Hampshire created a Christian church in the late 1800s that had overturned the cross and whatever Rome has attached to it. She overturned it with her discovery of what she called the divine principle of scientific mental healing. She had inspired a rapidly growing circle of congregations across the nation and in other lands to raise up their self-perception and their humanity and to become healers of themselves and others. She gave society a crown to wear instead of a cross. And the crown was not weighed down with dogmas, but was as light as a thinly outlined foundation for scientific reasoning with which to discover the principles of truth in individual experiences. After she died 44 years later, in 1910, the emblem of spiritual freedom that she had presented to inspire humanity became privatized and turned into an imperial structure itself. With it, the flood of healing diminished to a trickle. 2 years after her death, the USA, as a nation, surrendered its economic freedom with the Federal Reserve Act, and less than a year after that, Europe exploded into war. A war with which the masters of empire spread their terrorism against the world. The Russian Revolution erupted in the shadow of the chaos of World War I. It never achieved a breakout from empire for Russia. The revolution was betrayed. The Great October Revolution in 1917 was never designed to be a revolution that would raise society onto a higher platform. It was nothing more than an opportunistic power grab staged in desperate times by imperial agents who were financed and trained from the heart of the British-American Empire. The agents utilized the revolutionary ideology of communism that had been engineered by Marx and Engels in 19th century England, under imperial guidance of course. The Russian Revolution did nothing but replace one form of imperial dictatorship with another. It didn't raise society's perception of itself and its creative and productive capacity as human beings. In the wake of the raw overturning of power, the human value became reduced. Life became cheap. It became wasted. Up to 50 million people lost their life before the new communist empire stabilized itself. The second historic successful breakout from empire occurred in India under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. He started a 20-year non-violent, silent revolution. The most famous was his campaign against the British tax on salt in March 1930. He staged the famous Salt March to Dandi, where he marched 388 kilometers to Dandi, Gujarat, to make salt for himself. Thousands of Indians joined him on this march to the sea. This campaign was one of his most successful at upsetting British hold on India. Britain responded by imprisoning over 60,000 people, by which its fate was set increasingly on a course of no return. The silent revolution in India ended with success 17 years later. It became a bittersweet success, though. While Gandhi had inspired the Indian National Congress to call on the British to leave India, the Muslim League passed a resolution asking Britain to divide the country first. Thus, in 1947, up to 12.5 million people in the former British Indian Empire were displaced in the division of India, with an estimated loss of life up to 1 million. The third historic successful breakout from empire occurred in China in 1949, under the leadership of Mao Zedong. The Chinese Revolution followed the successful War of Liberation spanning 20 years. Some call him the savior of China, others call him a murdering maniac. He likely was both. The weight of empire on the Chinese people, both from within and from without, such as the British Opium Wars and related organized uprisings, was so heavy that the population of China increased by only 350 million over the space of 440 years. This was suddenly repeated in a mere 27 years under Mao's leadership, in spite of the horrific death toll his runaway political projects may have caused. Was he a great leader then? He inspired China to fight for a new life, and China won. But neither he nor China itself has a vision of what a self-elevated society must achieve. China did not have the cultural background that America had when Benjamin Franklin roused it to claim its freedom. Mao Zedong led China to claim its freedom from empire on a platform that he knew it could win. He did give China a new future. He was a great leader in this respect. The chaos that followed reflects the empty platform that an armed revolution brings with it. But who are we to judge the tragic failures in China that have occurred, as we are failing ourselves more tragically? If we compare notes on this score, Mao Zedong appears like a saint in comparison with us in Western society, who are engaged in massively burning food in a starving world, in the form of biofuels which presently consume agricultural resources that would normally feed 100 million people. The tragedy of our failing in this regard adds up to the greatest silent holocaust of all times, that is claiming 100 million lives every year, for which nothing is accomplished in return except genocide. A revolution that tears society's house down in its grab for power without building a better house. In the process, always ends in tragedy. Tragedy results in revolutions when the focus is backward-oriented, tearing down an established imperial system to eradicate the control of empire over society without establishing the platform of humanity-owned power. Such empty revolutions have nothing to offer in the end that would uplift society. They become empty revolutions. For a breakout from empire to be successful for society, it needs to be forward-focused. It needs to be born on the wings of a revolutionary breakout, in the self-perception of society in terms of the realization of its creative and productive potential. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and the Chinese Revolution were of the backward-oriented character. All three had their ideological dimension provided by the masters of empire in London. The French Revolution was directed, and to some degree financed from London. The Russian Revolution got its orientation provided through the channels of Marx and Engels, pre-staged from London. Mao Zedong may have received his orientation through the Russian Marxian axis. All three revolutions were by design empty revolutions. Mao's revolution ended in tragedy for this reason. However, Mao only failed by not implementing the principle that society itself had rejected and continues to reject. Thus, society's own continuation on this course will bring upon it consequences from its escalating Iranian wars that promise to pale Mao's tragic failures into insignificance, the principle that had been missing in the French, Russian, and Chinese revolutions, with the result of great tragedies, and in some cases the loss of the revolution, was illustrated by the farmer's daughter, who in the mid-1800s had overturned the cross and replaced it with the crown. She did not war against the doctrines of the fiction of Rome. She did not war against Rome that had scrapped the spiritual dimension of humanity, that had turned it upside down. Instead, she laid before humanity the option for utilizing science with which to lift itself into the realm of truth, where the doctrines of insanity fall away by their own emptiness, like irrelevant shadows along the path of the unfolding spiritual dimension of humanity. On this path she achieved a flood of healing. And not only conceptual healing. However, when she died, the great experiment died with her. Nevertheless, its imperative still remains valid, and remains yet to unfold. Perhaps when the Ice Age challenge becomes seen in its full dimension, with its demand on society to develop its inherent potential, humanity will, at last, inspire itself to step up to higher ground, above the little games that are presently tearing its world apart, to the truth of its humanity, where it finds the resources within itself to build the infrastructures for meeting the Ice Age challenge. The resulting revolution would then be forward-oriented. It would build the new and brighter world out of the power of humanity's inner resources, with which the Ice Age challenge will be met. The old world concepts, such as monetarism and imperial despotism, will then be simply left behind, as they would no longer measure up in any way to meet the growing needs for humanity's unfolding potentials. An honest facing of the Ice Age challenge might spark such a revolution. Such a revolution would become imperative then, not because the magnitude of the Ice Age challenge is such that a non-response to it would amount to suicide, but because an honest facing of this challenge would drive the kind of revolution in thinking that opens up a new world with vast potentials that leaves anything less in the dust. The Ice Age will come no matter what we do. But it matters to us how we respond to it. Thus, it doesn't really matter in what time and age it will begin, because what it demands from us is already needed today. Nor is it significant that no one can determine when the next Ice Age transition may begin, when the imperative to respond to it already exists. Empire is an ideology more than a power. It has no real power. It wields only the power that society gives to it. Society holds all real power. If society clings to the illusions which empire projects, it reaps the destruction that are inherent in this course, and vice versa. This means that in order to be able to break away from empire, society requires an understanding of the mode of the operation of empire. The American economist Lyndon LaRouche created an outline that illustrates how empire operates on the economic scene. The illustration was originally designed for a presentation at the Vatican. He illustrates a process by which the masters of empire and their stooges loot society, which, as a consequence, collapses society's physical economy. Point A represents the collapsed economy. The illustration shows further how the masters of empire then lay up the stolen loot in unproductive portfolios, which they deem to be wealth. Point B represents the resulting illusion. This is how the system of empire works. Since by its very nature the system of empire is a wealth-collapsing engine, LaRouche warned repeatedly, especially from 2007 on, that a non-collapse of this system is not possible by any means, or any leadership, or any force of government. He warned in 2007 that the point of no return has been crossed. The physical economy has been collapsed so deeply, and the illusions of wealth become so insane, that the total collapse of this looting system, which has been imposed as the world system, is no longer avoidable. He stated repeatedly that this system needs to be scrapped in order for society to have a chance to survive. However, the scrapping of this system, that has ruled the hearts and minds of humanity in its essence for centuries, even millennia, is not easily accomplished. The current system of empire rests on a subliminal foundation that was hugely promoted already by the Empire of Rome, where the value of the human being was reduced to zero, and the insanity of power beyond imagination. The subliminal train of evil has terrible consequences, and it is hard to get off it. The huge gap between the deeply collapsed human value and the sheer brutality of imperial insanity, which is the hallmark of the system of empire, became the religious coat of arms of empire that has ruled for centuries. It gives empire its power and forces society's compliance with the doctrines of the system that is killing it. The murdering was once done in the name of God. In later times it was done as the divine rights of kings. In more modern times it was done under the heading of market forces. And in today's world, the killing is done in the name of the earth, as in the case of the biofuels Holocaust.